Hello folks, welcome back. Things are getting very embarrassing for South Africa's intelligence services. The Daily Maverick's Karen Dolly published an article today, July 10th, 2026, which, while very revealing in the details about what happened for the convicted spy from Umkhonto Sizwe, well, she was with Umkhonto Sizwe, the convicted spy from the State Security Agency, while it reveals many of the details, which I'll discuss now, the article raises many questions which the journalist didn't ask in her story, and I'll ask those questions. Former South African Air Force Brigadier General Portia Posh Anyamba, who's been sentenced to jail in the United States for being a foreign agent for South Africa, was apparently paid to go to events and secretly report back to officials in South Africa. These and other accusations were part of her plea bargain. Anyamba apparently admitted to authorities in the United States that a South African State Security Agency official gave her a laptop and that she was following that individual's instructions in exchange for cash payments. Retired Air Force Brigadier General Anyamba was fined and sentenced to 6 months in jail in June of 2026 after pleading guilty to acting as an agent for South Africa and to submitting false information in an application for U.S. security clearance. Anyamba, who is originally from Johannesburg and whose surname was previously Sibiya, has a very strange background, having fought against apartheid with Umkhonto Sizwe and then serving the South African National Defense Force. Now, several people comment on my previous story about this, saying that Anyamba is not a South African surname. Well, it's not really germane to the story, and now we know that she actually had a South African surname, Sibiya. Now, according to South African Defense Force social media posts about her past, she retired from the Air Force in 2011. So from 1995 to 2011, she rose to the rank of nothing to Brigadier General. Wow, was that merited? So how exactly did she go about her spying in the U.S.? She was being paid by South African officials to attend think tank-style public functions. She then provided written reports for the benefit of the Republic of South Africa about those functions and events. Now, that in itself is not espionage, it's not spying. However, if you do it for a private corporation, you're employed. If you do it at the behest of a foreign government, you're a foreign agent, and therefore you must report that to the U.S. government if you're doing that in the United States. Her plea agreement explained that in early 2024, the FBI began an investigation into the defendant and others concerning unauthorized conduct undertaken on behalf of foreign governments. 2024. So this was during the Biden administration. Let's keep that in mind. That comes back to the story later on. The investigation revealed information that the defendant was acting in the United States under the direction and control of the Republic of South Africa. It further revealed that the defendant had provided materially false statements in connection with her attempts to obtain a security clearance issued by the United States government. That would have granted her eligibility to access classified information. How? Is she a naturalized U.S. citizen? The U.S. Department of Energy does not issue standard security clearances, nor does any U.S. government agency, to foreign nationals, as applicants must be U.S. citizens. However, foreign nationals may be granted specific unclassified or control access to sites under strict review or brief access governed by international treaties and security assistance certificates, none of which apply. We don't do intelligence sharing with South Africa, generally speaking, so you'd have to get something that's released on foreign release authority, but generally we don't give classified information to South Africa. The FBI found that Anyamba was in contact with the State Security Agency's official identified as IO1, Intelligence Operative 1. On the 15th of February 2024, Anyamba and Intelligence Operative Number 1 planned to meet at a steak and seafood restaurant in Tennessee. Woohoo! Wow, steak and seafood. FBI agents monitored that. They observed the defendant meet with the intelligence operative and another known individual affiliated with the Republic of South Africa, listed as Individual 2 in the plea agreement. Notice how we protect the identity of diplomats, unlike South Africa, whose home affairs doxed our diplomat at their illegal raid in violation of the Vienna Convention at Woodmead on December 16, 2025. They doxed our official, but we protect the identity of their diplomats. FBI agents watched the trio go to a hotel, and Anyamba later returned home, where FBI agents watched her retrieve an item from her car and take it into her house. The plea agreement said on 25th of April 2024, Anyamba and her husband traveled to a hotel in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., the den of spies. From the hotel, the pair were transported to the Embassy of South Africa, where they stayed for approximately 2.5 hours. Were they making biltong? Somehow I doubt that. At no time relevant to the information has the defendant registered as an agent of a foreign government or otherwise provided notice to the Attorney General about any attendant activities. So, she failed to disclose her activity. On the 20th of June 2024, she submitted an application form for U.S. government security clearance. Again, is she a naturalized citizen? Now, of course, one of the questions in the application is, have you or any member of your immediate family in the last 7 years had any contact with a foreign government, its establishment, such as an embassy, a consulate, an agency, military service, intelligence, or security service, or its representatives, whether inside or outside the United States? On the form, she replied no. Of course, that was a lie. It was a false statement. The plea agreement said about a week before submitting the application, she had asked 2 people if she could include them as references, and they agreed. Well, we do that. You have to provide references, I think 5 for top secret, and then they investigate a lot more than 5 people. On the 23rd of June 2024, 3 days after she submitted the application, she sent those individuals a message. Hey, ladies, I've just gotten information that they started the interviews. Really? 3 days afterwards? That's not how security clearances work. But anyway, maybe she misunderstood. She said, they are sensitive about foreign connections, so please don't mention anything about the embassy. The only work I listed was working at the gym and nothing else. So a retired one-star general is in America working at a gym? What is she, Schwarzenegger? The plea agreement said that Nyamba and Intelligence Operative 1 planned to meet again on the 7th of November 2024. They added that prior to the meeting, the intelligence operative instructed the defendant, please remember to also bring the laptop with an exclamation point. Before the meeting took place, FBI agents obtained a court-authorized search warrant for her person, her residence, and certain electronic devices in her possession or control. On the 7th of November, she arrived at an eatery in Knoxville for the planned meeting with Intelligence Operative 1, where FBI agents intercepted her just before she entered. Intelligence Operative 1, the other person with links to South African Individual 2, arrived shortly after. Nyamba had her laptop with her, and she handed it over to the FBI. According to the plea agreement, she had voluntarily spoken to FBI agents. Aha! So who did she give up? South Africa State Security Agency should now be very concerned that she has compromised other spies unless they had compartmented her access. The plea agreement said, among other things, she admitted that the laptop in her custody was provided to her by Intelligence Operative Number 1. She conducted activities in the United States at Intelligence Operative Number 1's instruction. She received cash payments for her work from Intelligence Operative Number 1. She was aware that Intelligence Operative Number 1 was not a United States citizen and was employed by the South African government, and she did not include her relationship with Intelligence Operative Number 1 on her security clearance application form. Very damning revelations. Now, people are asking the question, so how is it that she's only getting 6 months in prison? I'll give you 2 reasons. Number 1, she probably gave up a lot of information to counterintelligence, which we're benefiting and profiting from. And number 2, because of that, they offered her a lesser charge. Instead of charging with espionage, they charged her with not registering as a foreign agent, which carries a far smaller prison sentence, as well as lying on a federal form. And they basically plea bargained it down to 6 months in prison. This raises a lot of questions, none of which are addressed in the article in the Daily Maverick. So I'll ask them now. Foreign nationals are not granted security clearances, so she has to be a naturalized citizen. No media outlet in South Africa which is covering this story has mentioned what her citizenship status is. Now, what morons are accepting security clearance applications from MK spies or state security agency spies? I mean, how lax is security at the Department of Energy? They're responsible for nuclear energy research and nuclear weapons. It's just crazy in conjunction with the Defense Department for the weapons. Is the Department of Energy that inept? And by the way, how many South African spies has she compromised? Again, if they were smart, which intelligence agencies often are, you compartmentalize access. So perhaps she doesn't know any other spies other than the ones she was in contact with at the South African embassy. But then again, she was with MK, so maybe she knows a lot of names. And her debrief, no wonder we're only finding out about this. She's probably spent the past year spilling the beans on South African spies all over Africa, maybe even the Middle East, Europe, and here in the United States. Now, more importantly, what state security agency tradecraft did she compromise by volunteering that information to the FBI for a cushy, light prison sentence and being charged with lesser crimes? Has she compromised the methods that the state security agency uses to spy on other nations? It's a fair question. Now, imagine the arrogance and cheek of Cyril Ramaphosa, Ronald Lamola, Fikile Mbalula, and their ilk at antagonizing Trump, knowing full well that the FBI had their spy in custody the whole time, mocking President Trump when the South African intelligence service was caught red-handed trying to infiltrate our nuclear research facility. How do they plead ignorance about compromising U.S. national security when their spy was spilling the beans to U.S. counterintelligence the whole time? And they knew that. They knew we had their spy. Yet they continue to act as if they don't understand why we're upset about our national security. I told you all there is far more to the U.S. antipathy than the return of Trump to the Oval Office. This spying occurred on Biden's watch, and the U.S. government had long since arrested her prior to Trump's return. So if you're wondering why the United States is angry at South Africa, this is just one more thing. Several people are asking me, will this upset the relationship? Well, I don't think so, because we've known about the spy. We've been debriefing her. We, the U.S. government, not me. The U.S. government's been debriefing her for a long time. They've known about this since before Trump became president, and it didn't end our relationship with South Africa. Yet the South African government pleading ignorance about why we're upset about our national security is just arrogance beyond belief. And the cheek of coming to the White House knowing we caught your spy at our most sensitive nuclear research facility. Now, perhaps the most interesting question here is, why? What is the state security agency up to? Why does South Africa, which has its own nuclear power plant at Coburg and was seeking to export its pebble bed reactor technology, which is pretty good, why is South Africa spying on U.S. nuclear research? It would seem to be unnecessary, no? Was she there to gather secrets for South Africa or for someone else? On Biden's watch, Tehran crept ever closer to building a nuclear weapon. Is the ANC spying on the United States at the behest of Iran? Now, we've already seen her former colleague in the South African National Defense Force, the current commander of SANDF, pledge his fealty to the Iranian state sponsor of terrorism on his visit to Tehran. Are any media in South Africa looking into the ANC's finances? I mean, how did they magically settle their 102 million rand lawsuit? How did they fund a 20 million rand 112th birthday celebration in Nelspruit and then went on to fund their 2024 national election campaign? The disclosed income to the Independent Electoral Commission does not even come remotely close to explaining all that cash. And what of Mr. Mustafa and the Pala Pala millions? You see, when you overlook corruption, like Pala Pala, there's a thread here, potentially. But when you overlook things like that, big things pile up. South Africa has been caught spying on the United States, and it happened a long time ago. Throughout this process, the South African government knew that they were caught spying on the United States at our most sensitive nuclear research facility. Yet, to the South African public, they plead ignorance. They plead nonsense. First, they say Trump just doesn't know what he's talking about. Then when that doesn't work, then they try the white genocide canard. When that doesn't work, they try to say Trump is arrogant. That doesn't work. They say Trump is attacking South Africa. None of that's true. None of that's true. What is true is that South Africa was spying on the United States. Now, I've already covered this in a previous video, but countries spy on each other. They spy on each other. Get over it. It happens. But why at our most sensitive nuclear research facility? It's one thing to, go to a defense plant and try to get information on the latest missile that you can develop for yourself, or you can develop countermeasures in case it's an enemy. We're not an enemy of South Africa. I'm just giving an example. But it's quite another to go to our most sensitive nuclear research facility and steal or attempt to steal nuclear secrets when you're so chummy with a country desperate to get a nuclear bomb to incinerate the Middle East. What's going on here? Where is the South African government's comment on their spy being convicted and sentenced to prison? They've said nothing. They're quick to call Trump a fool. They're quick to mock him. They're quick to attack the United States. But they're very quiet on this issue. When will this government come forward and tell people about it? The answer is likely never. Kudos to South Africa's media, which is all too often negligent in reporting important things, focusing on the trivial and running their propaganda narratives. But this time, they've sunk their teeth into something of substance. The problem is that none of them are analyzing this. They're just reporting on it, which is their job, but they have analysts and opinion writers for all these publications. Where are their comments about South Africa spying on the U.S.? And where are the probes into the ANC's finances? Isn't it long overdue? They were talking about lifestyle audits for Dina Pule. How about lifestyle audits for the African National Congress in Lutuli House? What say you, South Africa, Mzansi, USA? Cheers.